Hello, it's delighting to see you again in this weekend edition of Into Vietnam, only on VITV channel. In today's program, we'll look at the following stories. Total assets of credit institutions increased 670 trillion dong in 2013. The Eurocharm survey shows improvements in European firms' confidence in Vietnam's business environment. And the EU financial support for sustainable forest exploitation and trade in Vietnam will be the topic for this week's Business Talk, which is joined by Mr. Franz Zetson, Ambassador and Head of the European Union Delegation to Vietnam. First of all, let's begin with this week's figures.
According to the State Bank of Vietnam, total assets of the credit institution system by the end of 2013 stood at nearly 5,760 trillion dong, increasing 670 trillion dong compared to the end of 2012. That increase amount was more than 5 times the number of 2012, 126 trillion dong. In relative numbers, the group of joint venture banks and foreign-owned banks had the highest growth rate with 26.92%. Following by Stock Commercial Bank Group with 14.08%. Total assets of state-owned commercial banks increased by 13.77%, while those of financial leasing companies declined 57.76%. Overall, the total assets of the whole system rose by 13.17% in the past year.
The State Bank of Vietnam says bad debt in the country is expected to account for about 9% of total loans after careful calculations, below the 15% ratio estimated by Moody's Investor Service. Banks in Vietnam managed to cut bad debt to 3.63% of loans by the end of 2013 from 4.73% last October. Moody estimated last week problem assets in the system to comprise at least 15% of total assets, significantly above the 4.7% non-performing loan ratio reported by the State Bank of Vietnam in October 2013. The central bank says Moody's uses its own methods, criteria and information to measure Vietnam bad debts, so they provided a different result. It says if calculating thoroughly, the ratio of non-performing loans, including the bad debt restructured under Directive 780, would be just around 9%. The central bank says it aims to solve toxic problems loans by the end of 2015. The Prime Minister has approved the issue of government bonds worth over $226.5 million to fund the National Target Program on New Rural Development. About 32% of the funding will go to northern mountainous provinces and nearly 29% to central ones. The Delta provinces will get 16% and 12.6% will go to Red River Delta. Central Highlands provinces will receive 7% and southeastern provinces will get 2.7%. The national program approved 4 years ago sets out 19 criteria covering infrastructure, production, living standards, income and culture that target localities have to meet. It was conducted on a pilot basis in 11 communes in 2009, and since 2010, more than 9,000 communes have prepared plans for development under the program.
Coming up next is some major macroeconomic and investment news.
The 14th Quarterly European Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, or Eurocharm, Business Climate Index Survey, released on February the 25th, showed that business confidence and outlook among European businesses in Vietnam improved remarkably. For the first time since 2012, the index has exceeded the 50-point threshold to reach 59 points, affirming European enterprises' confidence in the Vietnamese market. According to Eurocharm, the remarkable rise is likely due to the increasing optimism in the business outlook. falling inflation concern, and hope for the conclusion of a feasible and effective free trade agreement between Vietnam and the EU. Nearly half of the business involved in the survey operate in the service sector, 1/4 in the manufacturing sector, 1/5 in trade, and the remaining in other sectors. The number of respondents reporting satisfactory business outcomes rose from 38% last quarter to 45%. This showed that business operations have much improved. A Japan External Trade Organization or JTRO survey shows 70% of Japanese firms investing in Vietnam plan to expand their operations to capitalize on investment preferences. Most of them explain the reason behind the expansion plans is to increase sales revenues. In particular, non-manufacturing enterprises are attracted by Vietnam's steady growth and potential market. The country also has an abundant supply of labor and socio-political stability. However, the JTRO report points out high risk the Vietnamese investment climate incurs, most concerning legislation, administrative procedures, taxation policies, custom procedures, and labor cost. On the other hand, the localization rate in made-in-Vietnam products is rather low, at 32.2%, compared to 64% in China, 53% in Thailand, 42% in Malaysia, and 41% in Indonesia. The General Statistics Office reported state revenues by the middle of February stood at 99.4 trillion dong, or 12.7% of the yearly plan, while the budget expenditure was 114.7 trillion dong, or 11.4% of the whole year plan. Of the total state revenues, domestic sources contributed 71.6 trillion dong, 13.3% of the plan, while that from crude oil contributed 10.6 trillion dong, or 12.4% of the yearly plan, while import and export companies paid 16.8 trillion dong for taxes, or 10.9% of the yearly plan. By mid-February, 114.7 trillion dong of state budget was disbursed, equal to 11.4% of the whole year plan, in which expenditure on development accounted for 15.2%, or 9.3% of the target, 15 trillion dong of which was for basic construction, or 9.5% of the plan. As of February the 15th, state budget deficit stood at 15.3 trillion dong, or 6.8% of the amount agreed by the National Assembly in 2014. The government's General Statistics Office said in its monthly report, foreign investor has disbursed $1.12 billion in foreign direct investment projects in Vietnam in the first 2 months of this year, up 6.7% from a year ago. But new investment pledges dropped 19.3% to $831 million in the period. South Korea has the largest investment in Vietnam in the January-February period, followed by Singapore and Japan. Most of the funds went to the manufacturing and processing sector, followed by real estate. Foreign direct investment is an important source of foreign exchange for Vietnam to fund its trade deficit, which totaled an estimated $1.2 billion this month. Vietnam has projected it will attract between $11 billion to $12 billion in foreign direct investment disbursement this year, against an inflow of $11.5 billion last year. Data released by the General Statistics Office showed the Index of Industrial Production, or IIP, in February slumped 10.3% from the previous month, but still rose 15.2% on year. The slump was attributed to a long period of Tet holiday during the month, affecting business and production activities. The mining industry production rose 2.5%, processing and manufacturing industry 19.5%, electricity generation and distribution 13.1%, and water distribution and treatment 7.1%. In the first 2 months of this year, the IIP rose 5.4% from the previous year, higher than the 4.4% growth in the first 2 months of 2013. The inventory index at the beginning of February rose 12.7% from the same period last year, while the figure was 9.7% in early January and 21.5% in early last year. According to the General Statistics Office report, employment rate saw improvement in February. Although the Lunar New Year extended for 9 days, employment rate of industrial businesses as of February the 1st still rose 5.1% on year and 0.4% on month. The proposal legislates principles to secure and develop state capital in commercial operations. In terms of ownership rights and obligation implementation, the draft proposes to separate the practice of ownership rights from other practices. Every enterprise must have a representative body which takes responsibility before the government and the National Assembly for state ownership practices in enterprises. However, the body will not directly issue administrative orders or interrupt the enterprise's commercial operations. The draft also regulates the disclosure of periodic reports and requested information from SOEs. Transport sector has mobilized resources to invest in Build Operate Transfer or BOT, Build Transfer BT and Public-Private Partnership or PPP projects in various fields. According to the TPP department under the Ministry of Transport, the ministry has so far managed 56 projects of these kinds with total investment of 165 trillion dong or nearly $7.8 billion. The MOT has focused on promoting the BOT projects on National Highways number 1 and 14 by accelerating the completion of procedures related to investment license and signing of projects and credit contracts. The PPP projects will be divided into phases, with the first one prioritized while BT infrastructure projects will be refunded by using land, operating the other projects in combination with local economic development. The ministry has directed its agency to further promote investment and provide adequate and prompt information on BOT, BT, and PPP projects.
And now for trade news, we continue the program.
Vietnam has run up a trade deficit of $1.2 billion in February, or 5.9% of total import-export value, following a large surplus in January. Data show Vietnam export earnings are estimated at $9.6 billion and its import value at $10.8 billion. Experts explained businesses focus on production to meet export orders before the Lunar New Year that fell in late January. Businesses resumed production again in February, fueling material import demands. Despite February high deficit, the national economy has still maintained a trade surplus of $244 million in the past 2 months. Vietnam earned $21.06 billion from export, up 12.3%, and purchased $20.82 billion worth of imports, up 17% in 2 months. The foreign direct investment sector enjoyed a trade surplus of nearly $2.1 billion, while the domestic economic sector showed a deficit of nearly $1.9 billion.
According to Vietnam Customs Statistics, Vietnam's export earnings from the U.S. market hit $2.35 billion in January 2014, a year-on-year increase of 16.2%. Textiles topped the list of export items, earning $954.53 million, up 20.9% compared to the same period last year. They were followed by footwear, raking in $248.12 million, up 2.6%, and good products valued at $186.67 million, up 1.9%. Approximately 1.5 million Vietnamese residents in the U.S. support Vietnamese products in penetrating the U.S. market. Besides, once the Trans-Pacific Partnership or TPP agreement is signed, it will offer plenty of opportunity to Vietnamese exporters. However, the Vietnamese Trade Office in the U.S. warns Vietnamese businesses will encounter difficulties breaking into the U.S. market unless they meet its tough requirements.
Vietnam customs data show two-way trade between Vietnam and the United Kingdom reached a very promising $4.27 billion in 2013, a year-on-year increase of 19.48%. The value even exceeded the $4 billion target outlined in the 2010 Strategic Partnership Agreement. Of the total, Vietnamese export hit $3.69 billion, up 21.9%, and its imports worth $573.27 million, up 5.7%. Mobile phone handsets and components topped the list of Vietnamese export to the UK, raking in $1.24 billion. They were closely followed by footwear, garments, computers and components, wood and timber products, seafood, plastic products and coffee.
According to data from the National Research Institute of Mechanical Engineering, imports of machines and equipment for some major industry in Vietnam in 2011-2025 period may hit $250 billion. However, at present, Vietnam is capable of meeting only 25% of the total demand for equipment and spare parts, and the rest come from imports. Experts say in order to develop the mechanical industry, it's necessary to focus on more supporting industries.
This is one of the first forklifts assembled and produced in Vietnam. The representative of the firm said that they had studied the Vietnamese market for a long time. After seeing the potentials of the market, the firm started to establish the factory to produce and assemble forklifts and air compressors, the first one in Vietnam. According to this firm, although they can make the whole products, their production technology is authorized by a foreign company.
Hiện nay thì nói chung là cái công nghiệp mà máy móc ở Việt Nam cũng còn khá là non trẻ. Như các bạn thấy thì ở trong hội chợ ngày hôm nay thì những cái máy móc lớn, máy móc công nghiệp thì đa số là những cái công ty nước ngoài họ đến đây để mà tìm kiếm cơ hội và tìm kiếm khách hàng. Thì hiện nay là những cái công nghiệp mình ngoài những cái công nghiệp lớn như là ô tô hoặc là xe máy thì có những cái chính sách từ lâu của chính phủ thì đã phát triển đến một mức độ nhất định. Riêng đối với những cái ngành như là máy phát điện hoặc là xe nâng vân vân là những cái ngành cơ giới khác thì hiện nay ở Việt Nam cũng còn rất là trong cái giai đoạn phôi thai, chưa có cái công nghiệp đó ở Việt Nam.
This is a computerized sculpture machine being marketed recently. Thiên Quỳnh is the first firm to complete the engine for the sculpture machine in the Vietnamese market. The company said despite 20 years of participation in the market and experience in assembling machinery system, they have to import electronics controllers from other countries in the region to produce the completed engine.
Riêng dòng máy này thì tôi nghĩ là nếu mà so với Trung Quốc thì mình không có thua, do cái phần điện tử, phần điều khiển bên điện tử là mình không có theo kịp với các nước ngoài. Khả năng về phần lắp ráp cơ khí thôi, nói chung là chỉ là cái phần hỗ trợ cho cái trong toàn cái máy thì mình không thể nào mình làm được. Việt Nam mình không thể nào làm được.
According to the National Research Institute of Mechanical Engineering, there are many obstacles in raising the localization rate of the industry, in which increasing the supply rate of the supporting industries for the mechanical industry is one of the solutions.
Nguyên nhân từ những cái khó khăn như vậy là do chúng ta các cái chính sách mà chúng ta về thuế nhập khẩu nó chưa hợp lý. Như tôi đã nói trên, chúng ta chú ý về cái thành phẩm nhiều hơn là chúng ta quan tâm đến cái linh kiện và phụ tùng cho ngành sản xuất. Cái thứ hai nữa là cái nguyên nhân về cái ngành phụ tùng là hầu như các cái doanh nghiệp ít quan tâm đến cái vấn đề mà sản xuất các linh kiện phụ tùng, mà chủ yếu chỉ quan tâm nhiều đến cái nhập khẩu để mà cho cái lắp ráp mà hoặc là nhập khẩu các cái linh kiện phụ kiện để mà cho gia công thôi, mà không quan tâm đến cái sản xuất cái linh kiện.
According to businesses in the mechanical engineering industry, if the localization rate is high, consumers will benefit from the price guarantee period, after-sales services, and technology transfer. However, to overcome the existing obstacles to develop the industry, Vietnam needs to make bold efforts to be independent from foreign technology and develop our supporting industries.
The European Union has announced 3 supporting packages worth totally 3 million euros to help Vietnam and neighboring countries to fight illegal logging and promote a sustainable forest initiative. Mr. Franz Zetson, Ambassador and Head of the European Union delegation to Vietnam, says the projects will have non-government organizations and small and medium-sized enterprises take part in negotiations and implement the VIP and FLEG. More in our business report. Mr. Franz Zetson, thank you so much for joining our program today. Since March 2013, the EU has started the FLEG Action Plan in Vietnam. This should bring Vietnam a lot of benefits, but should cause some challenges to local firms. What have the EU done to help local firms to overcome the challenges and export their products to the EU market?
Partly through the negotiations of VPA on FLEG, we have been working very hard with the Vietnamese authorities to make sure that it's understood in Hanoi and in other parts of Vietnam what the regulation is about. But today what we have done is that we have signed 3 different commitments with 3 different organizations where the purpose is exactly to involve local communities, small and medium-sized enterprises in Vietnam, to better understand what FLEG means and how to utilize FLEG in the best possible way. FLEG is a classification system, it's a verification system that timber is being used in a sustainable manner. Vietnam is a big user of wood. It's a big producer of furniture, where wood is a key component. And therefore it's important that we make sure that we work very constructively with Vietnam in this sector. I think last year you exported for more than $5 billion worth of wood products, so it's a big export item for you. And Europe is a big destination for those exports. So there we are trying to work together with not only the central authorities but also with local authorities and with small and medium-sized enterprises and civil society organizations.
In a bid to help Vietnamese firms to meet the requirements of FLEG regulations, the EU today launched 3 projects to help them. Can you tell in details about this one?
The 3 projects are different. One of them is a regional organization which is not only covering Vietnam but also other parts or other countries in the neighborhood. But a main activity of that project will be in Vietnam, and that's why we're responsible for it here in the EU delegation in Hanoi. That project is an attempt to make sure that the civil society organizations in the different countries understand and they have a good use of the FLEG and the possibilities opened up under there. For the other 2, they're based only here in Vietnam. I say only, it's a very big country and a big exporter of wood products, so that's why we are focusing on Vietnam in this. One of the other 2 is based in the central provinces, where we work with the local authorities to make sure that they understand what FLEG is about and how to use it. And the last one is mainly focusing on small and medium-sized enterprises and getting them involved in the process. So it's 3 different contracts, it's 3 different ways of approaching the problem, but the problem is the same, and it's just how do we identify different target groups, and there the 3 projects are using 3 different target groups.
I'm really interested about the final projects. Can you tell in details about the EU efforts to support Vietnamese SME to join the market?
We support them through bringing information about FLECT to them, because once they are using FLECT, then the prices that they can attract on the European market would tend to be higher. Vietnam is not a big producer of wood per se. It's a big importer. Many of the wood products that you produce in Vietnam are using wood coming from other parts of the world, and therefore it's also important that when you import wood, that the FLECT is understood. And again, many of the importers are small and medium-sized enterprises, and we are working with them to make sure that they use the wood in a sustainable manner.
And last but not least, can you give general assessment on Vietnamese firms in meeting the requirements of FLECT so far?
I think they're doing okay. We've been negotiating the VPA for 3 years, and that period has also enabled us to make sure that the understanding is very high in Vietnam. So I think there's a good understanding, but of course you do have many small and medium-sized enterprises, and some of them are located in fairly remote provinces. So there, through these projects, we are trying to approach also SMEs located far away from Hanoi, far away from Ho Chi Minh City.
And once again, thank you so much for joining our program today.
You're welcome.
As usual, the final part of the program is a summary of local securities market throughout the week. Well, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. For comments and feedbacks, you can reach us by email at intovietnam@vitv.vn or give us a call at 0422208288. Goodbye and see you later.